This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, sorry, Fabiana. So you're from Bologna, well, close to Bologna. You said in the countryside, obviously in Italy. So very nice. I love Bologna. I visited Bologna maybe 10 years ago, and I really liked it. It's a nice little city,
Yes.
right? It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're from there. And what experience do you have with the Cambridge English exams?
So up to now, I've never done any of the Cambridge English exams, but
Right.
During winter, I had a CELTA course. I did the CELTA course, which
Right.
is connected to Cambridge as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, so my story is quite particular, maybe because I graduated in English literature 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've been working as administrative secretary for 18 years.
Right.
And then I lost my work during COVID.
Right.
And I decided that I wanted to become a teacher, an English teacher.
Wow.
And I started studying again, and I did the CELTA. And then now that I'm looking for a job, schools are requiring also certificates of language level, because I'm not native, and of course I must brush up my level of English. And when I was looking for information about Cambridge English exams, your face popped up in my computer, and so I started looking at your videos, and that's why I'm here.
Okay. Okay, it's interesting, yeah, because that was my next question, why? But you've answered it basically. Why do you want? Because I think that's very important. You need to know, or you need to establish a reason, a very clear reason, because it can be, the preparation can be quite tough. People have ups and downs. They can get quite demoralized because it's a really tough exam, as I'm sure you know. So yeah, I think you probably don't need the proficiency level necessarily to be a teacher, but it gives you an advantage, right? If you can put that on your CV, because
also because when I was working, I was speaking in German more than in English. So what I do now is to try to retrieve all the English words that are somewhere in my brain. Right. And it's quite difficult, but it's challenging and absolutely rewarding also. Being, so it's interesting, but I think that I need a lot of time. So I want to do this course, but I don't want to be in a hurry. I just want to enjoy it. And that's why I'm here.
Good. That's excellent. That's a good attitude too. So there's no real pressure.
No.
It will be of benefit to you to have the qualification, the certification, but yeah, you're going to see it as fun. Well, that was again my next question. When do you want to take the exam? But I guess you haven't decided, but there's no
maybe on December, but I don't know. Maybe next year. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, see how you feel. I mean, I think this course can be a good foundation to sort of, so when you start your preparation, you have an idea of how to approach each part. Or if you're planning to take the exam soon, like next month or in a couple of months, it can be I think it can serve that purpose too. But so maybe December, but
maybe.
Yeah, another thing, and we'll speak to everyone, maybe other people are in a similar situation. It's good to give yourself plenty of time, definitely, as I've said in my videos. But at some point, it's also good to fix some kind of, maybe not book the exam, but have some kind of idea so you can focus your studies. But yeah. Okay, is that all? So you said you've never taken a Cambridge exam before, apart from CELTA, but have you, apart from watching my videos, have you been, do you have any books, any material? How much knowledge do you have of the exams? Of this exam, of the C2
of this
position?
exam?
Yeah.
Not much, to be honest. Yes, I've only looked at your videos, and I'm just looking at some books. But yes, the more I know, the more I put off my decision of taking it, because I think it's really tough. Yeah.
It is, but as you said, you want a challenge, right? You find it, and that's why not go for the top. And it is. It's the toughest exam, I think, as far as I know. It's but it's also the most prestigious. That's the thing. I mean, it's tough, but it has more weight. It's more the most respected. The Cambridge exams are very respected around the world, but the proficiency, it's the top. So it's if you can or when you get the certification, it will be extremely rewarding and gratifying. So, okay, so good. Thank you. I have all the information. Sophia, what about you? Where are you from?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm from Hungary, from the capital, Budapest, and I live in the suburbs, very close to the highway, which is the one that is running around the capital. So I'm living next to a forest, which I love.
Right.
And nice. And the reason why I would like to participate in this exam, because I would like to prove to myself that I have a proficiency level of English.
Right.
I mean, my knowledge. And I'm keep putting off setting a date for the exam because it's very hard to prepare alone. But when I've started to watch your videos, I felt like that maybe a course like this would give me the extra encouragement that I need.
Okay, good. Yeah, I hope we can do that. Yeah, I think again, people often decide to take this exam and they're very enthusiastic, and then they see the reality of it, as I think Fabiano suggested. It's you realize it's tough and you're going to need more time, but hopefully what I think is very important is to maintain the enthusiasm and the enjoyment, because I've seen, and this frustrates me, is that people that have a good relationship with English, they have a positive attitude, and in the exam it all becomes very stressful and intense. It doesn't need to be that way. So hopefully we can keep it quite light and enjoy the process and get there. So good. So it's to prove to yourself your level. Yeah, that's quite a common reason for taking the exam, to just to have that certificate to say this is my level, not just as some kind of idea or something in the air. It's real. So, and Sophia, how do you have you ever taken a Cambridge English exam before?
No.
Okay.
I only have an intermediate language exam.
Okay.
Because it was mandatory to get my university degree. And that's it. After I finished the university, a year later, I moved to Dubai, and I was a flight attendant with Emirates for 8 years.
Okay.
So from that point, I've basically used English language every day. And even though I've resigned 4 years ago, my partner is Australian. So I'm using the language pretty much every day, all day.
Okay. So you always speak in English with your partner, yeah?
Yes, and I read everything in English. I watch all the movies in English. I like audiobooks. I have an Audible subscription.
Good.
But I'm not really confident in my knowledge.
Okay.
Because I'm not able to assess how good or how bad is my English.
Right. Yeah, I understand. It's you just want something tangible, right, to tell you what's your level, how you're doing. Yeah. That's good, but I mean, really, if you're, again, I think the most important assessment of your English is real life. I mean, and if you speak to your partner and if you can use English in real life situations without problems, that's what really matters. The exams are good for giving you a certification and confirming, but it's the real life situations are the most important. So, okay, thank you, Sophia. Erica, you're next on my screen. So, where are you from?
Hello, everyone. I'm also from Italy, but I'm from the island. I'm from Sardinia, the island between Italy and Spain, from the northern part. And my story is very similar to both Fabiana and Sophia. On a hand, I'm a teacher currently, but I started last year due to the pandemic. And my determination is to achieve a high level in English, because I read academic English every day, but I'm very well aware that my speaking and my writing are not at the same level of my understanding. So I would like to really have a challenge and to improve my English. So I want to feel very confident, as Sophia was saying.
Right.
I did one Cambridge exam when I was much younger. I tried the advance and I didn't pass it.
Oh, really?
While all my friends that were studying with me, they achieved the level.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, the problem was at that time was the writing. If I remember correctly, I'm not sure.
Okay. Right.
So I'm also planning to register for the exam at the end of the year. So I'm not stressed at all.
Okay, right.
Because I want to enjoy the process, and I really want to collect all the tips that you are sharing with us. I remember that in one of your videos, you said you should have already the level to. And yeah. I feel somehow I have, but I really need improvements.
Yeah,
so I want to do it.
Yeah, I understand it. I kind of regret saying that in my video. I mean, it is true to a certain extent, but it is possible to pass the exam without having the level. But that's kind of the difference between the advanced and the proficiency. You can intensively prepare for the advanced, and basically with enough grammar and some vocabulary, you can pass it. But the proficiency, yeah, I think it's true to a certain extent. Like, I think especially with the use of English, because if you can't learn all the idioms, and well, you can't learn them anyway, and vocabulary, but you need some kind of base, because you can study the grammar in 3 or 4 months. You can study all the grammar if you're very studious, and you can, with tricks and tips, you can pass the speaking and the writing. But the use of English is tough, I think, specifically. But yeah, anyway, speaking to you for a couple of minutes, it sounds like you have the level, at least at speaking. So that shouldn't be a problem for you. Now it's just the getting to know the exam and the strategy. So yeah, I kind of, what I said in the video, it's true, but I regret saying it because I think it may have put a lot of people off, which maybe it's not a bad idea, because I think some people are a little bit too confident when they take the exam, and you need to. But anyway, it is what it is. Yeah, I just realized, Sophia, I don't think I asked you, when are you planning to take the exam?
Well, there is an exam in Budapest on the 9th of July.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aiming for that one, but if I feel that I'm not at the desired level,
mm-hmm.
I won't be afraid to admit it and postpone the exam.
Okay, yeah. So it's
necessary.
Yeah, you can.
I'm not in a hurry.
See how you feel. Yeah, see how you feel when you get, maybe at the end of this course, after a couple of months, you'll have a better idea of, how you feel. Okay.
Sorry. I don't know if this is relevant. I have the IELTS test. I did the IELTS test.
Right.
And just for 1 point, I achieved the C1 level.
Okay. And when did you take that?
Last year.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have much experience with the IELTS. People are often asking me if I can prepare them, but I don't have much experience. But yeah, it's not such a different exam. I mean, so when you said just for 1 point, you mean you were almost C2?
Yes.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's what I was hoping. I thought you were saying you were almost B2, but no, it's C2. That's more logical. But yeah. Okay, so that's good. That means you're almost there, and you can get the C2 with some preparation and getting to know the exam. I did have another question for you, Erika, but now I've forgotten. It will come back to me later, so I'll probably come back to you. Thank you, Erika. So, Anna, where are you from, Anna?
I'm Italian as well.
Oh, really?
I think we're all Italian here.
It seems to be
more or less.
All my courses I've done, the Italians outnumber the others. It's right.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. It must be YouTube algorithm is recommending my videos more in Italy than other countries, perhaps. But which part of Italy are you from?
The north.
Okay.
Near the borders to Austria.
Okay. Right. So in the mountains. Right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Trentino.
Okay. And well, what should I ask first? Well, what experience do you have with the Cambridge exams? Have you ever taken a Cambridge English exam before?
I have taken the C1 just for kind of fun, basically.
Right.
And I have to say, but I am a teacher of English as well, so it didn't take me long to prepare for the C1.
Okay.
I didn't find it that difficult or challenging. I had some problems with the listening because the audio wasn't very good, the first part. But other than that, I didn't have problems. But I have been kind of thinking of CP for quite a long time, and then I always postpone it because I get quite stressed out in terms of I don't feel ready enough.
Right.
Which is, I don't know. And I have, sorry if I ask this now, probably it's not the right time, I don't know.
No, it's okay.
Something that you said kind of was very shocking to me, I would say, because you said that speaking and writing, you can pass with some tricks, it's not that difficult, whereas the use of English is the tough part. And I do agree, because one of the kind of problems that I have is I don't feel like I know enough words, or I am not very good at getting all the words that I have that are in my head out of that.
Right.
But the thing is, if I think of the scores, like the results that I see in the group, most people get amazing results in the use of English. So how do they do that?
It's a good question. Yeah, well, that's interesting. It's a good question. And I think something I've noticed, and somebody confirmed it because somebody had some information. In recent months, that's true. People have been getting very good scores on the use of English. A year ago or more, people were getting very bad scores on the use of English. And in recent months, it's been low scores on the listening and high scores on the use of English. My suspicion, and I think it's true, the level of difficulty of the different parts changes. I think the overall level is the same, or they get as close, each exam is the same. But I think what happens, or probably what happens, is that maybe one year in one exam, people complain that the use of English was too hard. So the next time they adapt it, maybe make it a little easier, and maybe they go too far. So I mean, I wouldn't say this to the people who have passed the exam and they're very proud of getting maximum scores in the use of English, but I expect it's easier now. And I think the listening has been more difficult recently because people have been getting quite low scores, relatively low scores in the listening. But yeah, it's true. I'm amazed when I see a student from my last 8-week course. She took the exam in February, and she got maximum scores, 230 out of 230 in the use of English, which is incredible. I would like to say it's because she attended my course, but I think it's more than that. She was very, I don't guarantee maximum scores because you attend the course. I think, as I said, you can learn some strategies and some techniques, but really you just need to, and yeah, reading and watching films in English and listening to podcasts for the months before you take the exam is great, but you can't learn enough. You can't learn every idiomatic expression, every phrasal verb, every fixed expression. You can learn all the grammar, as I said, but you can't learn all the vocabulary. So I think that's why I think that the speaking and writing is very difficult too. I'm not saying it's easy, but I mean, really in the speaking, for example, I think in total, each student has about 7 minutes of speaking, really, or I mean, I've never really calculated it, but maybe less. So, in that time, you don't have that much. The examiner can judge your level of fluency and confidence and pronunciation, but the vocabulary, you can kind of pre-prepare that. And that's why I make those lists of vocabulary videos, really mostly for exam students, because if you have 12 adjectives that you can use in your writing or your speaking, I mean, you would need more than 12 adjectives, but just to help you to feel confident, it's like, if I need an adjective, what was that one? And they don't have to be my adjectives, but just take a set of adjectives, a set of adverbs, some cohesive devices, those types of things can help you. But yeah, it's not easy. So you said you took the C1 Advanced for fun.
Yeah.
Was that recently or?
It was like 3 years ago.
Okay, and you passed it obviously, but
Yeah, of course I did.
Good score.
I did with a good score, but the thing is, I didn't. As I said, I had problems with the listening, so
Yeah.
I didn't have like the maximum score, which was okay because, as I said, I didn't even spend much time preparing for the exam, and
Right.
it wasn't that at least I didn't find it that difficult. But I have to say that the difference between C1 and C2 seems like a huge thing to me.
Right.
Not for example, in terms of you were talking about the writing. The writing for C1, it's nothing if I compare it to the writing for C2. I mean, this is my impression at least. Is more, I don't know, is more structure, is more, even the reading is not that, I don't know. I find it's so challenging for CPE, whereas C1, it's nothing special, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
but that's because it's your level. I mean, it's true. Yeah, I agree. But it's because you are C2 level, so C1 is going to be relatively easy for you, but C1 is the correct level for you, so it's going to be challenging. But yeah, I think the essay, which we'll look at later, the essay is very different to the C1 essay. But for example, in part 2, you have the report, and the structure, the questions are very similar, and the structure is the same. It's just what you put into it. That's the difference, really. I mean, maybe the content you need to include and the marking criteria is more demanding, but it's at the end of the day, it's what you, with the speaking and writing, it's what you demonstrate, it's what you show. But by the way, Anna, have you lived in England before? Have you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I lived in London for like 6 years.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought you have a very English accent. Yeah. So which part
Thank
of
you very
London?
much.
Which part of London did you live in?
I was in Notting Hill.
Ah, Nottingham, right.
I used to work in publishing.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, it was kind of my dream job basically. But then I had to come back to Italy, and that wasn't that kind of dreamy.
Right.
But yeah, London is like, it feels like home always.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I was born in London, but not Notting Hill.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you said that in one video, but then you said that you moved someplace else. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, when I was 6 years old, we moved to a village in Cambridgeshire. So,
Okay.
But I was born in the east, not the east end of London, but the east. When I was born, it wasn't really part of London. It was just outside London, called Romford. I don't know if you've heard of Romford. You wouldn't go there because there's nothing to see. There's no tourists. There's no sights to see. It's just pretty ugly part. But yeah, I would. Sorry, I had a motorbike going past. If I had London is a great place to live. I think if you've got a good job, because if you don't have,
it's very pricey. Yeah,
it's tough. I think. Yeah, my sister lives in the centre of London. She works for the BBC, and she's very happy.
Oh, okay.
But it's Notting Hill is a great place to live. So did I ask you all the questions? Well, when did you? You don't have any dates when you want to take the exam?
Well, I should kind of join the all the ones that have previously spoken about this, because, well, the idea was June, but then probably I won't be able to take in June because I have work-related things to do. So July, unless I chicken out.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, not chicken out. Maybe it depends how you feel. I mean, it's a common.
You know, chicken out is literally my kind of thing.
Okay. It's the. I've never known a student who has said, who has felt ready for the exam. No one's ever said, I'm ready now. This is it. I have the level. I'm prepared. Everything's ready. Nobody feels ready when they take the exam. So at some point you just have to bite the bullet and go for it and take the plunge, whatever idiom you want to use. But yeah, it's very difficult. I think that's why I was saying to Fabiana, at some point you just have to fix a date and stick to it. But yeah, at the moment there's no hurry. It just maybe at the end of the course you'll have a better idea. But one of the advantages you have, Anna, is that you've taken the C1 Advanced quite recently, and so you know the format. The proficiency is similar. There are some differences, and I always say the best way to prepare for an exam is to take the exam, because we can do mock tests and practice all the different parts, but it's not the same as spending a whole day in an examination center doing all the parts, and it's exhausting. And so you have that advantage, although it was the C1 Advanced, so that's going to hold you in good stead. Okay, thank you, Anna. Now on to, last but not least, Annette. So where are you from, Annette?
Hi, everyone. So originally, I'm from Belarus, but currently residing in Switzerland.
Okay.
But my story is very similar to Sophia's story. I also did fly for Middle Eastern Airlines, but not Emirates, Etihad.
Okay.
Due to COVID, my husband and I lost the job, and we had to move back. So we chose his country. And yeah, I got a lot of free time on my hand, and that's why I decided why not to verify my diploma, which is also German and English languages. So I did everything in German. I mean, I'm verifying my language in German, and now it's time for English.
Okay.
I already set up the date, which
Right.
is the 9th of July.
Okay.
And I feel like when I when I register myself for the exam, I feel kind of relief, because now I know I put some boundaries and I have no escape.
Right.
And if I would have a free time, I would not do some house relating stuff. I would study, I would look into books. So it's better. So you change your mind, you change your perspective, how to study.
Right. It's interesting. Yeah. It helps you focus and just when you have free time, that's what you should be doing, right? That you feel that's what you need to fill the time with. Right. Okay, good. So you have a very clear idea of when you want to take it. But I mean, you will all pass the exam. I'm going to be positive. But hopefully you can maintain this positive attitude. I think you'll, kind of have similar reasons for taking the exam. And in the worst case scenario, as I said, the best way of preparing for the exam is to take the exam. So taking the exam, and even if you fail, which I don't think you will, but any of you, but you're still going to have valuable experience of going through the whole process. Of course, it costs money and time and those things, but it's the best way to prepare. So yeah, fixing a date and going for it, I think it's a good idea. But again, everybody is in a different situation. So, so have you ever taken a Cambridge English exam before?
No, I haven't haven't done any kind of experience in this type of exam. So,
okay.
But I did the one which is on the Cambridge.com. This is a mock-up test.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You've done the whole test.
Yeah, it's quite a time-consuming, but yeah, you really need to focus and to type in correctly, to listen. But yeah, I felt like it's really useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've done it was the level test or the mock exam?
The mock one.
On the computer-based. This
is the one which is for free on the internet. Everyone can do it.
It's just that they're. Sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay, they have they offer a handbook, which I was going to recommend that you all download. I mean, I can share it, but it's a free handbook. If you just Google C2 Proficiency Handbook, it'll take you straight to the link, and you click on that link and it will download the handbook for you. The handbook includes all the information you could possibly need about the exam. It's for teachers, actually. It's a handbook for teachers, but I think it's at least as valuable or as useful for students as it is for teachers. But it also has it has a sample exam, but I imagine it's the same one that you took, Annette. I think they only have one.
Yeah, I think the same thing.
It's probably the same one, but yeah, I still recommend you download the handbook, because it, as I said, all the information and recommendations for how to prepare, and it gives you, more than anything, I think the most useful part is the writing section, because you have the example questions, the example tasks, but then example answers, real answers from real candidates, and examiner comments. So you can see the examiner's feedback, or why they gave the marks they gave. So it's very useful, I think, and to see how to structure different writings. But we're going to do that in this course anyway. Have a look at that, but just to see the examples, I think is very useful. So yeah, so you have some idea. Well, you have a big idea of the format and how did you do it? I mean, how did you? I'm not going to ask you your results, but okay, thank you, Anna. You've shared the handbook.
To be honest, the writing part I skipped because I'm really terrible at this part of English. That's
Right.
why I'm here. Not only, but the writing is really my bad friend.
Okay, yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, you can't skip it anymore. You have to face your demons and go for it, I think. And that's quite common, that people, the writing is it's the one area that people avoid, but you have to do it at some point, and that's why it's very important you have these six corrections included in the course. I do ask you to try to send I mean, it doesn't matter, but if you try to send, sometimes in these courses people send all their writings in the last week, and then I have like 36 writings, which is worse for me, but it's also worse for you, because as I said, if you can send them progressively through the course, you have time for my feedback, and you can implement some changes if necessary. Okay, I think that's everything. So it's good to get to know you a little better, and we're going to get to know each other better as we go through. I want to start with the speaking. In the first two classes, we're going to look at speaking, and then we're going to look at all the other parts, and also the writing if possible, so you have time. So I don't know if you can hear Amy barking in the background. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions for me about the course or about anything you like before we start?
Yeah, I do have one. Okay. About how to improve my vocabulary. Because as I said, and I think this is kind of one of the biggest problems that we all share, my understanding of it, of course. Maybe you do have the vocabulary in your head, but you don't know how to get it out, or you want to improve your vocabulary to a degree, like in order for you to feel a little bit more relaxed if you were to sit at the exam like the following day. But do you have any suggestions of that, or books, I don't know, websites or something?
Not so much books and websites, but I think you're talking about passive and active vocabulary, right? You have this passive vocabulary, which so when you read a book in English or watch a film, you probably understand most of the words, if not all, but you don't use them actively. I mean, and it's the same in your own language, in Italian or anyone's own language. You might read poetry or legal document or medical text, and you understand the words, but you don't use it every day. We have quite a limited range of vocabulary that we use actively, but we have a lot more passive vocabulary. So what you're asking is how to move the passive to the active, and apart from that, to learn more perhaps. But I think a big thing you can do is just move the passive to the active, and it's tricky, but it's about using it, of course. But for me, you can try actively using the vocabulary in your speaking, but that's very tough. I think writing, of course, you need to practice writing for this exam anyway, but in general, actively, like just writing little stories. If you want to practice some vocabulary or use more vocabulary, because when you're writing, you have time to think. You can construct a sentence and think, I'm going to use this adjective to describe this. When you're speaking, you don't have time to think. So you're going to use the first word that comes to your mind, or the word that is good enough. But when you're writing, you go through the thought process, and you can include more, I don't want to say impressive, but I'll say impressive vocabulary, or advanced vocabulary, or less common vocabulary. And I think just the act of doing that helps to shift the passive to the active. Mm-hmm. But it's about being proactive, and this is what I'm going to mention in a moment. But because hopefully you all read in English. I recommend you read. You should be reading in English anyway, but I recommend you read articles in English, different articles. That I'm going to. In fact, I'm going to, because I have a little presentation just of tips, things you can do. I'll do it quite quickly, because if you've all seen most of my videos, you probably know a lot of these, but I'm just going to share the screen now. So you should, in a moment, you should see my screen. Can you see that? Oh, now I think you should be able to see it.
Yep.
But for some reason, well, so this is general study tips outside of the course. So things you should be doing. And as I said, at proficiency level, you all, speaking to you all for a few minutes, you all have very high levels of English. So I think you all seem to have C2 levels of English. So to get there, you must be doing the right things. You must know how to learn English. You know how to improve your level. So a lot of these tips will probably be obvious to you, but this first one, keep a specific exam preparation vocabulary notebook, because maybe you have a notebook, or maybe not, but to learn vocabulary, but a specific exam, so that, when you're getting close to taking the exam, you can use it as a reference. Just go back and you hopefully you've noted things like collocations, phrasal verbs, maybe some idioms, idiomatic expressions that you can use in the exam. I mean, there's not sort of exam vocabulary and real or the real world vocabulary. It's all the same vocabulary, but just if you have it in one place from now on, then it's just easier to organize yourselves, I think. So yeah, and this is the next tip: proactively expand your vocabulary just by paying attention. It's perhaps when you're not preparing for an exam, you're just maintaining or improving your level of English just by surrounding yourself with English. You just immersing yourselves in English, but for fun. You watch series you want to watch, you listen to music or podcasts you want to listen to, you read books that you find entertaining. But now you need to just make that extra effort to pay attention and take notes of new and useful vocabulary. So you still watch the same series, the same films, but just pay attention. Which, I mean, I'm sure you're paying attention anyway, but it's this extra being proactive, thinking of the exam, what I need to expand my vocabulary for the exam. And then Anna, as you're asking, is this use it or lose it? You have to use the vocabulary or you won't remember it. There's one thing learning vocabulary, and another thing is remembering it and being able to recall it actively. And really what we're talking about is the speaking and writing, because in the reading and use of English and the listening, it's passive. Your passive vocabulary should be enough. I mean, well, maybe not for the use of English, but when you're reading text, you probably understand most of the words. And even if you don't understand all of the words, you can infer the meaning, and the context should be enough. But when you're speaking and writing, you want to use more active vocabulary, of course. So it's about being proactive and paying attention. And as I said, one way to be proactive, which I think is really useful, is by writing. So you have the writing tasks that you can send me. You could do more writing tasks, but just write little stories, little short paragraphs where you include the new vocabulary you've learned in context. Sorry, Anna, to answer your question more, it's something I've mentioned a lot in my videos as well, and I don't want to, well, I don't know if I'm repeating myself or not, because I don't know if you've seen it, but to learn vocabulary, you need to make an emotional connection to the word. We remember things when we have an emotional connection to them. When you think of, you probably, Anna, and I've had situations in Spain, because I live in Spain, I guess, I don't know if you know that, but where I've been in embarrassing situations because I've used the wrong word, or I've pronounced it incorrectly or something. And I remember those situations, even if they happened 15 years ago. So I remember that vocabulary because the emotional connection there was embarrassment and humiliation. But there are other emotions you can use. But when you think of examples, your own examples, use people you know. Don't just use John and Mary. Say my mother and my best friend, or whatever, that to make an emotional connection. And one last tip, because they're coming back to me as I'm speaking, is this this idea of spaced repetition. I don't know if you've heard of this way of learning. I'm not an expert on spaced repetition, but it's quite logical, I think. You can't just learn a word and hope to remember it forever. You have to learn it again and learn it again and learn it again, relearn it. And so when you learn a new word, you should probably repeat it the next day, and then maybe 5 days later, and then maybe a week later, and then maybe 2 months later. So there are apps and systems you can use, but I think you don't necessarily need to use a specific system. But when you have this specific exam vocabulary notebook, you can just regularly go back and look at the vocabulary. So every few days, don't just write it down and forget about it until the exam. Just keep going back regularly to reinforce the vocabulary. It's this spaced repetition. I'm going to investigate more spaced repetition, because I think it's logical and pretty common sense, but I think there is some science to it, which I'm not an expert on, but I'd like to learn. Has anybody else used the spaced repetition technique to learn vocabulary? No.
I just heard that if you repeat something for the next 7 days, right, it will stay in your long-term memory.
Right, 7 days. Yeah, maybe that's the science. Yeah, yeah. What I've heard about spaced repetition, you have to repeat quite regularly at first, and then the space between repetitions can get longer. So, yeah, maybe the 7 days is important, and then maybe it's like once a month. But again, it's logical and really just going back and reading your old vocabulary. So read varied texts. Yeah, and this next one's related. Films, series, podcast, radio, YouTube. That's obvious. But this maybe not so obvious. Boring. You have to read. And when I say boring, I mean to read texts and watch films, etc., that perhaps you wouldn't usually read or watch. Expose yourself to vocabulary, because when you're using English, you probably just watch films, and if you're interested in gardening, you watch documentaries about gardening, or you read about gardening. So your gardening vocabulary is probably very, very, very advanced. But if you're not interested in photography, for example, you still need to read an article on photography. You need to force yourself to read things that perhaps you wouldn't usually read, because that's the way to expand your vocabulary. In general, immerse yourself in English. Again, that's obvious. dig out your old grammar notes. I say this in a video, in a couple of videos actually. I do think your grammar notes, if you still have them, if you can find them, they're particularly useful because they're yours. You wrote them, and you'll have that connection to them. And find a study buddy. That's really useful. I mean, now that's why the Telegram groups are so useful that I set up. I think just to connect people with each other. But here in this, I mean, this course fulfills this part to a certain extent. But because as I said, in the Telegram, this group's Telegram group, you can communicate with each other and ask each other questions. But it does help because I think just knowing that other people are in the same boat, going through the same thing, helps. So I need to stop sharing a moment because I don't know why that's not working correctly, but okay, we're going to go on to look at, I just want to make sure that you know the format of the exam before we move on. Are you all quite familiar? I know some of you have more experience with this than others, but you said you've seen my videos. So are you all quite familiar with the format of the exam, the different parts of the exam? Yeah, some people are nodding. So, okay, well, I'll do this quick presentation. As I said, it's because I'm recording this, I may go a little bit quickly, but you can always watch it again if you miss any parts, but we're going to run out of time if I don't, and my computer's very slow, so I think now we've got it. Okay, now it seems to be working better. So can you, I think now you can see the screen, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the exam format. There are 4 papers. Reading and use of English, which is 1 hour and 30 minutes. It includes 7 parts and 53 items. So when they say items, really they're questions. In this case, in the reading and use of English, the items are questions. So 53 items in 1 hour and a half. It's quite a lot. Paper 2 is the writing. It's also 1 hour and a half. And there are 2 parts, 2 items. There are 2 writing tasks. We'll speak about that in more detail in the future. Paper 3 is the listening, which is 40 minutes. There are 4 parts. And so 30 items, 30 questions in this case. Usually, well, always, the first 3 papers, the reading, use of English, writing, and listening, are on the same day in the examination center. So you'll do them all at the same time. There'll be usually a 15 or 20 minute gap between each part. So you'll do the reading and use of English, then you'll have a 15-minute break, then the writing, then a 15-minute gap, depending on the examination center. But the speaking paper is often on a different day. It may be on the day before, the day after. It could be the week before, the week after. Or it may be in the evening. The rest of the exam may be in the morning and the speaking may be in the evening. And that's 16 minutes and 3 parts. So as I said, it's quite short speaking, but it's very important. So we're going to look at the speaking paper now. So as I said, it's 16 minutes and there are 3 parts. The first part is the interview, which really, we often call it the icebreaker. It's to break the ice, but it's important too, as I'm going to explain in a moment. I won't give too many details now, but that's the idea. It's an icebreaker. Part 2 is the collaborative task, where you'll see some pictures. It's a collaborative task because you'll be doing it with your partner. And then part 3 is the long turn. You have a question card and you must speak on your own, answering the question. Again, I'll explain more later. And the last part is the discussion. It's the second part of part 3. And this is the best bit because you'll have, it's just hopefully a natural conversation or discussion with your partner. it's a real opportunity to demonstrate your level. That's why I think it's the best bit. The interview is not too demanding, but it's the first part, so you'll be quite nervous, I imagine. It's strange. It would be strange if you weren't nervous, but yeah, so we're going to look at that now. Okay, so the interview is a short exchange between the candidate and the interlocutor. So you do not talk to your partner in this part of the exam. It's just between you and the interlocutor. So the interlocutor will ask you questions, and they will be personal questions, not too personal, don't worry. It's just things like, where are you from? Well, it's curiously in the proficiency exam, you know that the first two questions will be, where are you from and are you working or studying at the moment? Which is strange because in the advanced, you don't know what the first questions will be, but in the proficiency, you do know. So you can prepare an answer, but it shouldn't sound prepared. So you shouldn't sound like a robot just with a rehearsed answer. It should sound hopefully quite natural. So you can think about how you want to answer the question, where are you from? I've already asked you all that question, and so that the answers you gave me could have been, in some cases, the answers to that first question, because you don't want to give a very long answer, but of course you don't want to give a very short answer. If they ask, where are you from? And you say, Italy, that's not enough. You're not demonstrating your level there. So you need to give a little bit more. It's always better to speak too much than too little, because the examiner will interrupt you if you're speaking too much, and it's okay. I mean, it's common sense really. You know when you're speaking too much. So yeah, these first two questions, you can have an idea of how you're going to answer them, but try to make it sound natural. So this is an opportunity to make a good first impression. People as I said, it's the first part of the exam. It's an icebreaker, but it's that you're going to be marked. Remember, in the exam, you'll have the interlocutor who speaks to you, who asks you the questions, and then behind the interlocutor is the assessor who won't speak to you. That he or she will be introduced, and they will be assessing you from the first moment, from the first question. So you should take the opportunity to make a good first impression. It's important. It's as important as the other parts of the speaking exam, of course. So your answers should be about 2 to 3 sentences, more or less. Some people prefer time, so maybe about 20 seconds, but it's not that strict. But just the important thing is you don't just give one-word answers, of course. And this last part is easy for me to say, but smile, make eye contact, and relax. Of course, that's nothing to do with your English level, but it does demonstrate to the examiner that you're a confident English speaker. So if you can just walk into the room, smile at the examiner, the examiners, make eye contact, and just try to relax. Take a deep breath and try to relax. Easier said than done, I know. But it's possible. Okay, so we're just going to practice a few questions from part 1. So I'm going to close that now, and we just to get a feel for perhaps how you want to answer the questions that I'm going to ask. So I didn't mention actually, there is a third question. Did I mention it? No. So you have the first 2 questions and at least one more. If everything goes well, there will only be one more question. If you're giving very short answers, the interlocutor may need to ask you another question. But if you do the task well, then they'll ask those first 2 questions and then another question which you can't prepare for because you don't know what it will be. You have no idea, but it will be a personal question. Again, not too personal. So we're going to practice this one by one because it's not a collaborative task, just to get a feel for the type of questions and how you want to answer them. So I feel like I've spoken a lot. do I have a volunteer who would like to go first, or are you going to make me choose someone? No volunteers, no. Okay, I hate this because then I have to choose someone and then they'll hate me for the rest of the course. Because should we do it in alphabetical order? If we do it, okay, Anna. If we do alphabetical, you're going to be. Is that okay? Do you mind going first?
Okay.
And because also I'm choosing you because you've done the C1 advanced, and
Okay.
I won't choose you first through the whole course, but
No stress, of course.
no pressure. The advantage of going first is that when you've finished everyone else, you can just observe everyone else and relax. So yeah, no pressure, really no pressure at all, because this is just the first. It's to get a feeling for it. It's that's all. So remember, really the only tip, your answers should not be too short, but not too long either. So for the first one, say something about where you live. Say where you live and then something extra, whatever you want. And then the question, are you working or studying at the moment? Remember, it doesn't have to be true either. I think I would recommend it. You give an authentic answer, but if you don't want to, if you want to invent something, that's fine. But it's easier to speak about something authentic, but you don't have to, of course. Okay, so the examiner will say, good afternoon, my name is Ben, and this is my colleague, Mary. And your names are, I'll ask for both your names. And then he or she will say, first of all, we'd like to know something about you. So where are you from, Anna?
I'm from Italy. I'm from the north part. I live in a city which is quite small, but I really like it. We have a castle and lots of nature like parks and the mountains around us. So I really like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And are you working or studying at the moment?
I work. Well, I'm also studying for the CPA exam. So, but yeah, I work.
Okay. Okay.
Should I continue?
It would be good to give a little bit more than that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a teacher of English in high school. So my students are, their age ranges between like 14 and 19. Mm-hmm. And I think that most people say that teaching adolescents is quite difficult, but I really enjoy it because I think it's challenging, but in a positive way. So
okay,
there is lots of interaction, which I like.
Okay, good. And how good are you at relaxing?
No, I'm not very good. I really enjoy nature. Therefore, when I'm really stressed out, I tend to be surrounded by something like go for a walk or sit in the park and read, for example, which I find really relaxing. But I'm also a very emotional person. So I tend to get very stressed out about whatever happens around me. I'm not very good with that. So.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, very good. How did you feel about that?
It was a little bit embarrassing, I have to say. Not that embarrassing, but again, okay, I'll express my idea, of course. I felt like I was being too simplistic. Mm-hmm. Like probably I should have used, I don't know, inversions or a more structured or more kind of difficult vocabulary. But I don't know, I feel like communicating with a native comes natural, but communicating with the native when it comes to thinking of the exam is quite stressful. Yeah. And therefore, this is kind of the part in which I would love to open my head and get some vocabulary out, and they just words don't come.
I know. No, this is so common, and almost everyone answers when I say. That's why I always like to ask before I give my feedback how you felt, because I could have predicted your answer because everybody feels the same. It's obviously you have a very good level of English and you've lived in London. I'm sure you've had some very a wide range of conversations with different speakers. But when it becomes an exam environment or exam conditions, something changes because you're being judged. I mean, also here you have 1 hour ago, you had never met these people, these strange people on your screen, and now everybody's listening to you do this task. So it's a very unnatural situation, and so that's why to then on top of that try to include impressive grammar and vocabulary, it's very tough. It's not impossible, but it's very tough, and I would recommend don't worry about that too much. Remember, this is just the first part of the speaking. You'll have many more opportunities to speak, and although you'll probably feel the same when you finish the other tasks, you'll probably finish. Oh, I didn't really use. It wasn't sophisticated enough. I could have used more, but that's so normal. The problem is I made a video about this too, so apologies if you've seen it, but when you try to actively include impressive vocabulary, you're going to interrupt your train of thought or your flow. So fluency is extremely important here, and you spoke very fluently. It's fluency, pronunciation. There are a lot of other aspects. It's not just about vocabulary and grammar. So you have to think of the cost benefit analysis. If you interrupt your train of thought to include an impressive adjective, okay, great, you've got an extra point or an extra mark for including an impressive vocabulary, but what's the cost of that? Have you now lost your train of thought? Are you going to be able to speak fluently? If it comes up naturally, fantastic, but I don't think you should try to force it. I think it's not worth it, basically. Hopefully, in part 2, you'll have the photographs to talk about, which can stimulate some vocabulary. In part 3, you have the question with some ideas, and then you'll have the discussion, so you can use your partner. So probably in those parts, you'll have more opportunities to use that type of vocabulary and grammar. So don't worry about it. I think that's what I'm saying. It's completely normal. Everyone feels like that, but don't worry about it too much. It's frustrating because I know you have that level and you have all that vocabulary and you don't use it when you need it. It's like now you need it for the exam and you don't use it, but I think, you'll be okay with that. It's so yeah, just your answers were good. You live in Italy, the north part. You live in a city which is quite small, but you like it. It has castle and mountains. This is why I think it's a good idea to prepare, because you know what the first 2 questions are going to be. You can prepare something that you're going to say, but without it sounding prepared. So not preparing a script, but just think, what could I say about my town and how can I describe it? You spoke about a castle, but you could describe the type of castle. You spoke about the mountains, but can you be more specific? That type of thing, because then if you can, it will make you feel more comfortable when you start, because you're all going to feel nervous, of course. But if you can prepare a few, just to have a few words in mind or something to say about your hometown or whatever you want to say, but to have something in mind. And the same with the second question, are you working or studying at the moment? Again, you said you're working, you're a teacher of English, high school, you find it challenging. So yeah, then you started to come up with some more vocabulary, which is good. Again, you can prepare that a little bit because you know what the question is going to be. Examiners know, Cambridge examiners have a lot of experience of this, especially at the proficiency level. So they can tell if you're just giving a rehearsed answer. So you don't want to do that, but just it will make you feel more comfortable, and you're going to make a good first impression if you just have just something prepared, some idea of what you're going to say without a script. Exactly. And the extra question, how good are you at relaxing? Yeah, not very good. I enjoy nature. That was very good. You thought very quickly there because it's difficult. you go for walks, I think you said. You're an emotional person, so it's good answer. I think that third question, because you don't know what it's going to be, and sometimes it can be you can be taken aback by the question, because what can I say about that? So if you can just give a nice fluent answer to that, you don't need to worry. I mean, if you can use impressive vocabulary, great, but don't worry about it too much. So well done, Anna. Well done for going first. You've done it, and so excellent. It's always the most difficult, and now the others have heard all my tips, so they can maybe implement them, but you didn't have that advantage. So good. That's, yeah, well done. Very good for your first effort too. Any questions before we move on? Or is that...
About the impressive vocabulary, because in the group and also in some of your videos, you speak about kind of having some impressive vocabulary to use. I remember one of the members of the groups, and that she was very happy about the speaking because she used lots of impressive vocabulary that she had read. So my question to you is, do you have any tips on that? Like, for example, you spoke about grammar, and I mentioned like inversion or conditionals. For example, how could I have, I don't know, squeeze in some, I don't know, inversion of conditional in what I said?
Well, in what you said there, I mean, it's you could, of course, but I don't think it's necessary to. It will sound very forced, I think, if you try to do it in the exam. But you could say, for example, not only do I enjoy nature, but I also like going for walks. Well, that's kind of not really not only, but also. But not only do I enjoy nature, but I also like to spend time reading. You could use a cleft sentence. What I really enjoy doing is reading in the evening, for example. So, but I think you have to be careful with that. That kind of grammar you should be using in the writing. But I think it can sound a little bit unnatural if you try to force it into the speaking. I think for me, the fluency is more important, because you're going to be nervous. You're going to be thinking of the content of what you're saying. You're going to be thinking of how to answer the question. So I think it's going to be very difficult to do everything, include impressive vocabulary, use inversion, use passive, use conditionals, and give a good fluent answer. I don't think the examiners are looking for that necessarily. If you use it, if it comes up naturally, then yeah, it's great. But you can get a good score. You don't need to use all. Yeah, you can get a top score without using all the vocabulary or the grammar in one part. But yeah, you can keep it in mind, but probably it's going to be easier in the collaborative task to use that type of grammar and vocabulary, because when your partner is speaking, you can be thinking, obviously listening to your partner, but also thinking, okay, when I respond, I can probably respond in this way, using this word and using this grammar, because you have a bit more time to think. In the part one, which is the interview, and in part three, the first part of part three, which is the long turn, you're on your own. So you just need to get in the zone and think about your answer. You'll have more opportunities, so don't worry about that so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, but well done, Anna. Good. Sophia, you're up next. I'm going to choose, because I'm just going to go in order that I see you on the screen. So are you okay to go next?
Okay.
Good. So it's the same. First two questions will be the same, but the third question will not be the same as Anna's question. Of course, it'll be a different one. But any questions before we start, Sophia?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's go. So the examiner will say, first of all, we'd like to know something about you. So where are you from, Sophia?
Hi, I'm from Hungary. I live at the outskirts of the capital, Budapest. In in a very quiet and green area. I moved here 4 years ago, and I bought this apartment because I wanted to live by the nature. And actually there's a forest next to my building.
Okay.
And I really enjoy walking there in my free time.
Okay. And are you working or studying at the moment?
Well, at the moment I work as a pedicurist, but my original profession is kindergarten teacher. I've never worked as a kindergarten teacher though.
Okay.
And I just gonna start university course from September, as earlier. Well, I'm not sure how you say it in English, because it's a very specific kind of school system that we have in Hungary. It's basically I'm gonna be a nurse for toddlers.
Okay.
But it is not in the school system yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Do you use the internet much for your studies?
Absolutely, on a daily basis. Google is my best friend. Absolutely. I really enjoy watching videos on YouTube. Every time I read something interesting, I would like to just get more information about it, and I'm keep looking up everything in the dictionary.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. It's good. Well done, Sophia. That it's horrible when when in this case me, that I hate doing it, but because it goes against my instincts as a teacher to interrupt my student when they're speaking. Because usually in normal classes, I try to encourage my students to speak more. But in this situation, I'm playing the role of the examiner, so I need to interrupt. So good, Sophia. How did you feel about it?
Well, I didn't feel good about it. I was very nervous.
Yeah.
Because I'm not confident with my grammar.
Okay.
And it is very different to talk with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about that, others are assessing how I'm expressing myself, and they're assessing my grammar and other things I'm not aware of, and it makes me instantly frozen. Right. And it is really hard to talk about anything.
I understand. Yeah. Well, you did well. I understand completely. It's as I said, it's a very unnatural situation, but this is the value of you attending this course and doing this now, because it's probably a very unpleasant experience, isn't it? Because as I said, you have all these people looking at you, judging you. But if your first experience of that were in the exam, can you imagine? That would be so much worse. So you are much more prepared now immediately because you've just done that. And obviously we're going to practice the speaking more, but that feeling, nerves and stress, it's a stressful situation, is what you're going to be feeling in the exam. So you need to go through it before. You can't avoid it, and that's why you're all doing the right thing by putting yourself in this position, because you need to go through the experience. So well done. It was good. One thing I would say is that I think, again, because you're nervous and you're in the zone, you didn't need to speak so much. Again, the examiner would interrupt you probably more than I did. The examiner would have interrupted you before I let you speak for longer. Again, it's not a problem if the examiner interrupts you, as long as you have given the examiner's content because they need content to mark. So the only problem is if you speak, and you didn't do this, but if you speak without giving much content, some people sort of go around in circles or speak very slowly and don't really give much content. So yeah, just be aware that in the exam, perhaps shorter answers, or be prepared for the examiner to interrupt you earlier, because yeah. So yeah, you said you're from Hungary. You said at the outskirts. It's on the outskirts. The preposition with outskirts. So that's a good one to remember for the exam. On the outskirts, a very quiet and green area. And you said you bought the apartment because you want. I think you said it's next to a forest. That's good. Again, probably that information you didn't need to give, but if the examiner doesn't interrupt you, then you just keep speaking. But as I said, it's in this. Sorry, I don't want to mislead you. In the first part, you don't need to keep speaking until the examiner interrupts you. But it's you should have a feeling for when you've spoken enough. Hopefully, so 2 or 3 sentences. As I said, that's quite vague because your sentences may be very long, but about 20 seconds, no more than 20 seconds, definitely. And then you said at the moment you're. Well, again, you said at the moment I work. It would be better in that case. At the moment I am working, because the present continues for this current situation, the current action. As a pedicurist, and then you said you've never worked. You're trained to work in a kindergarten, but you've never worked for a kindergarten. You're going to be some kind of nurse for toddlers. Again, good, but if you could just express that idea a bit more concisely, because you were talking about it's a different system. You don't know how to say it in English. It's better just to say what you said in the end. It's a kind of nurse for toddlers. That would be great. That was perfect, just to say that. So good. And I really liked your answer to the third question, because it was very quick and natural. So, which was, do you use the internet for your studies? You said, absolutely, on a daily basis. That was very natural. It just came out of you. Fantastic. Yeah, Google is your best friend. So for me, that was the best part of the whole. That was the right way to answer. It was very natural, fluent, and that's what I was saying about being authentic. I think, because that felt like an authentic answer from you, and that's the danger of preparing the first answers too much. It doesn't sound so authentic, perhaps, but that was really good. So excellent, well done. Let's move on now to. Sorry, a question? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yes. When they're asking, where do I live? What should I talk about in that 2 or 3 sentences? Are they expecting me to talk about the infrastructure or about the sightseeings in the area or about my apartment? So it's nothing. It isn't exactly clear for me that what do they expect to hear for the question, where do you live? Where are you from? You
can say, yeah, it's open. They don't expect anything. Usually people say, they talk about the town or city or village they are from. So I think a typical answer, and you don't have to give this answer. In fact, I don't recommend you do, but something like, you could say, I'm from, well, I'll say I'm from a village in Cambridgeshire, which is in the southeast of England. It's a very quaint village with a population of 2,000, for example. That's quite a boring answer. Your answer was more interesting than mine, but that type of thing, just saying some facts about the place you live, or maybe your feelings about the place you live. Can you say, I like it because, or as you did about the living near a forest. But it's not that. The examiners are not looking for anything. That the content is not that important. As long as you answer the question, you can't talk about a different question, of course, but it's not that restricted, not that limited. Just, you can answer it as you like. It's not, they're not expecting anything in particular. But yeah, just have to stay on topic. Okay, so Erica, you're up next. Okay, ready? Any questions? Yeah, ready to start. Okay, so first of all, we'd like to know something about you. Sorry, one thing I should say, in the exam, it won't be like this. The examiner will ask maybe one question to one candidate, and then so may say, where are you from, Erica, and you, Sophia, and then the next question to Erica. But for today, we're just doing it all individually in one go. So, Erica, where are you from?
I'm from Sardinia, which is the island between Italy and Spain. I'm from the northern part of the island, which is known as the Emerald Coast because of the beauty of the sea and because of the color of the sea. And I like the place very much because it's a quiet place. There is always sun, there is always wind. And so also the state of life of people are very high. So I feel I live in one of the most happy places in the world.
And are you working or studying at the moment?
At the moment, I'm working as a teacher. And I decided to become a teacher because I wanted to make the difference in other people's life. And so when I asked myself, what can I do? I simply identified education as the answer, because education can really make a difference in, especially in the youth. So this is why I decided to become a teacher. I teach philosophy and history, which are two subjects that I think are very valuable nowadays. So history, because we definitely need to know history to understand what's going on in the world, and philosophy even more, because we can train our brain to understand what's going on in the world.
Okay. And how much interest do you take in international news?
I love international news. I'm very enthusiastic about international news because as a teacher, I of course need to be informed, and also I like to share with my students some news from different sources. So this is why I don't read only Italian press, for example, and because I want to expand the view of the events that are going on. And so this is what I do basically on a daily basis with my students. So we go on the internet, we find different sources, we read and comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good. How did you feel about that, Erica?
I feel embarrassed as everybody else, but at the same time, I feel, I mean, I like the distance learning because I think it opens huge opportunities. So. And I'm also trained because of the pandemic to use this tool. So I appreciate it very much. So yes, I feel embarrassed, but I think that if we were together, I would have felt much worse.
Oh, really? Okay, it's interesting.
I feel so, yes.
It's in person, yeah, because it's, I'm not sure, because so you've experienced this, yeah, distance learning from both sides, right? As a teacher and now as a student, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's obviously more distance between us, so maybe that feels more comfortable. But just being like 6 rectangles on a screen is obviously quite unnatural. But so yeah, very good, excellent. I was thinking I should say this sort of the length of the answer. I'm not interrupting as much as examiners probably would, but from my understanding, talking to students and some examiners or one examiner, it often depends on the examination center. It depends on the examiner, the interlocutor, and it even depends on the time of the day. Sometimes they're in more of a hurry, so they may ask, "Where are you from?" And you say, "I'm from Italy, from Sardinia, northern part." Okay, thank you. They may interrupt you there, so you may have this answer or an idea of an answer prepared in your head, and you may think, "Ah, I didn't have the opportunity to use it." So don't worry, but it's not a reflection on you if the examiner interrupts you early, but I just thought I should say that before I forget. But yeah, very good, Erica. Northern part of the island, Emerald Coast. It's a quiet place. One mistake, you said it's one of the most happy place in the world. So it should be one of the happiest places. One of the happiest places. You know that, yeah. It's again, often people make these mistakes that you know, but when you're in the moment, it's difficult. Yeah. So you said you're a teacher. You want to make a difference. Yeah. So you gave an authentic answer again. You make a difference in education. You love. Yeah. You think you chose education is how you can make a difference. philosophy and history. You said you love international news. That's very good. Again, a very good, quick, natural and authentic answer to the extra question, which you can't prepare for. So that was good. You gave a good, very good answer. To be honest, I would be terrible at this part of the exam in English or any language, because I don't have the I can't think that quickly myself. So I'm always very impressed with students when they do it so quickly. I love international news. As a teacher, I'd like to be informed, expand your view. Yeah, so very good. Excellent. As I said, perhaps, again, the interlocutor may have interrupted you earlier than I did, but it's all good practice at the moment. Okay, Annette, let's go with you next. If you're ready, if you're okay for that. Yep. Okay, good. So you know, yeah, any questions?
No, no question. Can I do I need to obviously have to greet, yeah? Although when we're entering the room, we say hello or good evening, but then when introducing, what would you say? Would it be nicer to say one more time hello, or it would be a little bit strange?
I think it would probably be a little bit strange, yeah, because that's, yeah, before the exam starts, before the speaking paper starts, you'd probably just say hello,
Okay.
you know, and the examiner will say, sit down here, you here, and because the examiner will start by saying, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my name is blah, blah, blah. And then they'll say, and your names are, so we haven't done that part. So you'll say your names, and then, so no, don't, it's not necessary to say hello. It would be strange.
Okay.
It's a good question, but yeah. Okay.
So
yeah.
I'm Hannah. Originally, I'm from Belarus, but I'm currently residing in Switzerland in a very picturesque village, which is a stone throw from Zurich. And as I said about the village is really quaint and surrounded by mountains and stunning lakes. Saying that I'm really appreciate that I get a chance to live and enjoy every day the nature out of my window.
Okay. And are you working or studying at the moment?
Neither nor. I've been enjoying maternity leave for about 11 months. So I could consider myself as 100% employed by my son. And so I'm busy with bringing up him.
Okay. Good. And what would your dream holiday be?
To this question, I would give an unusual answer, because being cabin crew and visiting lots of countries, I would say my best holiday would be just get a chance to enjoy my home, to visit, to have a chance to visit my relatives, to visit their big memorable dates, and just be around them. So bottom line, I'm done with making holidays.
Okay, good. Thank you. How did you feel about that, Anna?
I feel like my thoughts are just jumping from the left to the right, and it's quite challenging to gather them together. So you really, really need to concentrate by what you are saying. So, like, be a step ahead, like in chess.
Right. Yeah. Strategy. Yeah. I think you have to get in the zone, really be, because there are so many distractions, because you're, as I said, you're in an unnatural situation, maybe nervous, and you need to really focus on what you're saying, getting into the content of what you're saying. That's why I think if you can give authentic answers, it just makes your life easier, right? Because I said the examiners don't care if you're telling the truth or not, if you're just inventing something, but it's better for you, I think, to give authentic answers. Yeah, because it can be, but yeah, as you did, I think it seemed especially the third answer seemed, well, I guess they were all authentic, but the third one, because you weren't prepared for it, you didn't know what it was going to be. As with everyone so far, it's been very, very natural. So good. You didn't let me ask the first question. You started without me asking, but don't do that in the exam because.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to be polite, and it turns out that I'm override you. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. Yeah, you obviously knew what the question was going to be, so yeah, don't bother. It's not a problem now, but yeah, obviously in the exam, wait for the question. But yeah, you used some good vocabulary. A picturesque village, a stone's throw from Zurich. So a stone's throw from somewhere is very close. Not literally, of course, but you really appreciate the nature that you have around you. Yeah. Your answer to working or studying, neither nor. Good. You've been enjoying maternity leave. You consider yourself 100%. I didn't have time to write what you said, but
100% employed by my toddler.
Yeah.
I think I said son.
Yeah, I think you said son. Yeah. How old is your son?
Almost 11 months.
11 months, right? Must be. Is he walking? I don't know. 11. Do children walk? 11 months. All right. So crawling around everywhere.
He's really plunk. He's really trying to pull him up, but yeah. Right. Oh, I can talk on this topic very long, but I don't think the others will be.
No, it's interesting, no, but yeah. Okay, and the last one, yeah, you have an unusual answer because being cabin crew, you had the chance to enjoy. You like the chance to enjoy your home. You said something I didn't quite catch. You said a memorable dates or
like our anniversaries, like birthdays. How would you gather them in one?
Special occasions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Special occasions.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes those words don't come up, or those expressions don't come up when you need them. But yeah, special occasion would have been perfect. But yeah, very good. I think you did well. You include some good vocabulary and grammar. So well done.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Okay, Fabiana. Last but not least. Any questions before we start your turn, Fabiana?
No.
Okay, so you're ready to go. Okay, so first of all, we'd like to know something about you. So where are you from, Fabiana?
I'm from a town called San Giovanni in Persiceto, which is 30 kilometers near the city center of Bologna. And I like staying here because I live in the countryside and there's nature. I can have animals in my gardens. I love animals. And in half an hour, I can get to the city center, which I love also. So it's nice to be here and with family and children. It's quite comfortable because it has all the facilities for families and it's a quiet place. I like it.
Okay. And are you working or studying at the moment?
At the moment, I'm working a little bit with my husband. He's got a company on his own and I'm helping him issuing invoices like a secretary, but I'm also studying because I would like to improve my English and I would like to become an English teacher. So I'm studying English and I enjoyed it really very much because I've always been interested in foreign languages. I love the sound of foreign languages. To me, it's like music. I like it.
Okay. Well, this question now, will English play an important role in your future career?
Well, I hope it will, because that's my passion. That would be my dream to fulfill. So if I really have the chance of becoming an English teacher, that would be my dream. That's the dream of my life. So yes, definitely. And my intention would be to open maybe a personal VAT number and to give private lessons to students, so especially in English. And so, but at the same time, I would like also to be connected to English speaking native speakers through the internet, maybe. Now that there is the possibility of being formed and having professional development through the internet, and yes, it will definitely have an important part in my life. And I would like to teach English to my children too. So we will be speaking in English in the next years.
Okay. Okay, good. How did you feel, Fabiana?
Well, embarrassed. Because if I think there is no possibility of doing the exam online. No, you have to go to a center, an exam center.
Yeah. The possibilities you have of the computer-based exam or the paper-based exam, but that you still have to go to the examination center, and the speaking paper is the same anyway. It doesn't make any difference. Just the difference between the computer-based and the paper-based is that you do the reading and use of English, writing and listening on the computer, but in the examination center. It's not online. It's just on the computer, not online. But the speaking paper is exactly the same. What would you prefer doing it online then? Is that?
Yes, because I feel that I'm more confident at home because I'm in my comfort zone.
Right.
And being in an exam center, it's more difficult for me. But, okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's one thing we can't recreate it's very difficult to recreate in general, but in this, of course, in this course, because it will all be online. But still, I still think you get an idea of answering the questions and the feeling for it. So, but yeah, of course, it's a very unnatural situation in general, but because of you're being judged, and nobody likes being judged. But good, I think you did well. Yeah, so you from a town again. I let you speak longer than the examiners would, especially that third question. It was good, but I'm sure the examiner would have interrupted you before. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
I don't want you to think, oh, but Ben let me speak for a minute and the examiners interrupted me. They will interrupt you before, or if they need to interrupt you, if you keep your answers shorter and more concise, even better. And that's for everyone, yeah. But yeah, town 30. Well, you said 30 kilometers near the city center. We'd say we don't usually use that expression. We'd say 30 kilometers from the city center.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't use. It's not grammatically incorrect. It's just not not a common structure. So you live in the countryside. It seems that everybody lives close to nature, right? I think everybody here is near a forest, or so. Me too. Now I live in the country. One thing I have to say, because this is a very common pronunciation issue that most people make this mistake with the word comfortable. Comfortable. Yeah. You said, as many people do, comfortable. I think you said, but
I didn't realize it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's one less syllable. It's comfortable. But yeah, good. So you're working or studying. You're working with your husband who's got a company. You want to be teaching English. Yeah, and that extra question, it was the last question I had, because I want to ask authentic questions, and maybe it's not the best question for you because you just answered it really. But so the question was, will English play an important role in your future career? Yeah, I hope it will. It's my passion. It's the dream of my life. You'd like to give private lessons. That was probably enough. That would probably been a good moment to finish, but you continued about, you want to make contact with native speakers and different ideas, so it's fine. I gave you the opportunity. Just be aware that the examiner, you don't need to speak so much in part one. You have more opportunities to speak. Okay, very good. It's a good start to the speaking. I think what we're going to do now is look at the writing, because we're not going to have time to do this part two. And I think hopefully Leandro, will everybody be okay will everybody here be able to attend next week's class on Thursday? Because hopefully, yeah, because it's Easter, right? It's Easter week, but I don't know in your countries if you celebrate Easter and in most countries it's Friday and Monday, but in Spain, in many parts of Spain, it's Thursday and Friday. But if you're okay, hopefully Leandro can come, and then we can practice part two of the speaking and part three. We will have time to practice everything next week. But today, for the rest of today's class, I want to look, it's very important, I think, to look at the writing, because you can start, maybe, if you can start doing some writings. So we're going to be looking at, I'm going to show you another presentation. Sorry, I need to get it ready. This time on the writing paper. So I'm going to give you overview of the writing paper, and then we're going to look at the essay in particular. So I'm going to give you some information on the essay. Okay, you can all see the presentation now, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, we'll see if my cursor starts working, but yeah, so in the C2 Proficiency Cambridge exam, the writing paper consists of 2 parts and you have 90 minutes. Part 1 is compulsory. It's a discursive essay. So you will have to write an essay, and it should be between 240 and 280 words. So that's quite clear. You have to write an essay, and so you need to prepare for an essay. Now, the word length, this is not strict. It's not as strict as you may think. If you write a few words less than 240, or if you go over 280, you're not going to lose marks automatically. If you write 200 words or 200 or 300 words, as long as you're including relevant information and you're only doing the task, that you complete the task and you include relevant information. So I think in some other exams, you lose marks for every word over the limit. But this is not a limit, it's a word guide. But it's important to keep close to it, because that's part of the task. Part 2, you will have to choose one of a formal letter, an informal letter, a report, a review, or an article. And this is very important, this extra option. It's important that you know about this now at the beginning of your preparation. It's the set text. You have the opportunity to read a book or 2 books before the exam. So I don't know if you're familiar with it. I recommend you do this actually, because every year, every 2 years, they change the books. This year it's Us and a Jane Austen book, Northanger Abbey. So these, we'll look at this later. I'll go into more detail about this, but I wanted to mention it now because you may want to start reading the books now so that you're prepared. And I recommend it because it's something that, that you can be prepared for. You can't prepare the task because you don't know what the task will be, but it's a good idea to read the set text of the books before, at least one of the books before the exam. And as I said, you should be reading in English anyway, so why not read one of the books or 2 or both of the books for the part 2. So we're going to look at part 2 in more detail later, but it's very important, or it's very useful to know about the marking criteria of the exam. Sorry, Anna, could you mute your microphone, because it's very loud when you move the papers, and it must be. Thank you. So the marking criteria, it's very useful to know what the marking criteria is, what the examiners are looking for, and they look at these 4 criteria. So content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. So when you send me your writing tasks, I will be looking at this. I'm not a trained examiner, but I know what the examiners are looking for, and I can give you feedback. And I'm going to tell you here. So the first is content. And really, this is basically just asking, have you done the task? Have you completed the task? So you must read the task carefully and do the whole task. This is relevant for all the paper, all the tasks, for whether it's the essay, the report, the review, the article, or the letter. The criteria is the same. So make sure you read the task and do the whole task. You must ask yourself, because this is what the examiners are going to be asking, is the target reader fully informed? Now, the target reader for the essay will be a teacher or a tutor. It's an academic task. So that will always be the same. You always need to use the same, it will always be for the same target reader. For the part 2 tasks, the target reader will be specified in the task. So this, they will say, for example, you must write a letter to the local council, or you must write a report for your boss, or you must write an article for a magazine for young people, for example. So the target reader will be specified, and you must pay attention to that, very important. And don't include irrelevant information, only do the task. Don't start giving information which is not relevant to the task. That's important. The next is the communicative achievement. So the communicative achievement is referring to first of all, the conventions of the task. So you must check that your writing uses the convention of the task. So an essay is an academic text, as I said, so it should be presented with an introduction, a conclusion, and 2 or 3 main body paragraphs, as we'll look at in a moment. But more for the other tasks, for example, a letter, you have to start with "Dear Sir" or "Madam," if it's a very formal letter, and finish with "Yours faithfully," or if it's to a friend, just "Hi, John." So you have to think about the conventions of the task. And also the communicative achievement is related to using the appropriate register. So the level of formality. You should know at proficiency level, and you should be able to adapt your style of writing depending on the target reader. So you have to keep in mind who the target reader is, because that will affect the communicative achievement, the appropriate register. Again, if you need to write a letter to a local politician, that will be very different to writing a letter to a friend, for example. That's a very clear example. Sometimes it's not that clear, but you have to be sensitive to the target reader. And they're looking to see that your composition communicates ideas in an effective way. Okay. Then organization. So this is the third criterion that they look at. So you need to use logical paragraphs and sentences. Logical, that, you know, the structure, you know, if you usually it would be in some kind of introduction paragraph, 2 or 3 body paragraphs, whatever the task. I think you can follow the same structure, and a conclusion paragraph, but they have to be, you know, if you start a new paragraph, then why are you starting a new paragraph? It's to introduce another idea, probably. You need to demonstrate a range of cohesive devices, which are like linkers. So instead of just writing "however" 3 times, you can write "however, nevertheless." Use things like "furthermore." I can't think of any more, although I've seen millions of them. Even basic ones like "first of all" or "firstly," or "in conclusion" or "in addition." They don't need. You can use a range. That's the important thing. And depending on the register, you have to use appropriate register, even with the cohesive devices. In a letter to a friend, you're not going to use "furthermore" or "nevertheless," of course. Although it's not, you don't usually have the task of writing to a friend in the proficiency. Punctuation is also important. I recently made a video, I don't know if you've seen it, but on how to use commas in writing. I recommend you watch that, because we save time in this course. I don't need to do a class on how to use commas, because that's a big problem I've noticed my students have. Either they don't use commas when they should be, or they add commas to illogical places, you know, in the middle of a sentence when you don't need it. And that can affect the flow. It's very difficult to read tasks when you have commas in strange places. It interrupts the flow. So
I have a question.
Sure.
In that video, you were talking about Oxford comma.
Yeah.
And in this exam, the CPE exam, are they expecting us to use the Oxford comma or not?
They will be. You can use it or not. It's accepted. If
Either way.
Either way, if you use it, great. If you don't use it, great. It's an area.
So I'm not going to lose a point if I use it or I don't use it.
No, because it's accepted. It's a matter of preference, really, of the writer. Some people prefer to use the Oxford comma. some people prefer not to use the Oxford comma. The Cambridge examiners will not judge you on your preference for using the Oxford comma, so don't worry about that.
Thank you.
Okay. And yeah, the last part of organization, that you need to use titles and headings when necessary. As I said, we'll look at this in more detail, but it's for reports. Basically, you need to use title and maybe articles and reviews, but the report needs titles, a title and headings. But as I said, we'll look at that in more detail later. The language, this is an important one, and this is where you can really demonstrate your level, because and this is what Anna was asking about regarding the speaking earlier, but you have more opportunities in the writing to use and demonstrate a range of grammatical structures, because it's more natural. In an essay, to use inversion. In spoken English, I don't really use inversion when I speak in English. It's not something that comes up because we don't usually speak in a formal way, or never really, unless I'm giving a speech or a presentation, which I don't use inversion. Conditionals come up in speaking all the time, of course, but really you have an opportunity to demonstrate a range of grammatical structures in your writing. In the formal tasks, you should try to use, inversion probably, conditionals, passive, definitely you should be using the passive form, because in formal writings, they should be more impersonal. They shouldn't, instead of saying I think this, I think it's more appropriate to write it is thought, or even things like many people think that climate change is getting worse. You don't need to say many people think. It's better to say it is widely believed, or it is generally thought that climate change is getting worse. That type of structure. Again, it needs to be appropriate and sensitive to the task, sensitive to the target reader. That's a big difference between advanced and proficiency. With advanced, examiners will accept sort of good enough, that's good enough, perhaps. I mean, advanced is a very difficult exam too, but in the proficiency, you need to use more precise vocabulary and precise grammatical structures that are really appropriate and sensitive to the task and sensitive to the target reader. They're less forgiving for not using the really the best word in the situation, the most appropriate collocation or the most appropriate phrasal verb or whatever. So you need to demonstrate a range of vocabulary, and this is where I recommend that you learn a few, or you go to the exam with some adjectives, some adverbs, some cohesive devices, a set, so you can reproduce them. I know that's not a good way of learning English, but it's a good way of passing an exam, I think. And of course, minimal errors. Hopefully as you'll see, I recommend in a moment, you have some time to check your writing at the end to correct any errors that you make, any typos or silly little mistakes that you've made, which are very common, because time is of the essence. So time management, time management is very important. I recommend 45 minutes for each composition, because it's an hour and 30 minutes. Now, of course, part 2 should be slightly longer. The word length, the word guide is longer. So maybe you want to dedicate a little bit more time to it, but I think in the end, it's easier to manage your time if you just say 45 minutes for each composition. If you start thinking, well, maybe 40 for the essay, 50 for the part 2 task, it gets a bit complicated. But as I've said, it depends on the individual. Now, I recommend 15 minutes for planning, 25 minutes writing, and 5 minutes for checking. Some people think that 15 minutes planning is excessive. I think the more time you spend planning, the less time you need to spend writing, and the less crossing out you need to do, the less rewriting you need to do. If you can literally plan what you're going to write, where you're going to write it, so what you're going to include in the introduction, what you're going to include in the the second paragraph, what you're going to include in the third paragraph, how you're going to conclude, Even think, okay, maybe I could use the inversion probably in this, when I express this idea, maybe I can use passive here. So really plan a lot, plan, not, 15 minutes I think is good. Some people prefer 10 minutes. I think personally, it's a personal thing. I've seen lots of other teachers like on YouTube and other places give their recommendations, and they usually say 5 or 10 minutes. So maybe my advice is excessive, but the more you plan, the less time you waste when you're writing. But it's very important that you plan. And as I said, 5 minutes to check, just so those silly mistakes you may have made, you can eliminate them. I know we're running over time, so I'll quickly look at the essay. As I said, you can watch this video or this part of the video back again if I'm going too quickly. But so I recommend, well, yeah, it should be 4 or 5 paragraphs. I think 4 paragraphs are enough for the essay. A short introduction, again, personal preference. I like a 1-sentence introduction. I don't think you need to waste too many words on the introduction. Just give an idea of what the text is going to be about, what the essay is going to be about. And in the proficiency essay, you will always be summarizing and evaluating the key points in 2 texts. Let me just show you. This is an example. So you'll have 2 texts that you must read on the same topic, but expressing either opposite points of views or just looking at the same topic from different perspectives. So you must summarize and evaluate the key points. So the natural way to do this is to perhaps use the 2nd paragraph to summarize and evaluate the key points of the 1st text, and the 3rd paragraph to summarize, evaluate the key points of the 2nd text. You will also need to, as it says here at the top, include your own ideas in your answers. So that could be in the conclusion or maybe in the paragraphs. There's not a strict structure for that, how you express or present your ideas. But again, looking at the example writings in the handbook, the Cambridge handbook, which Anna shared in the chat, that will help give you an idea of how to structure it. Remember that they're not perfect. Some of them are quite bad, but you'll see the examiner comments. So don't copy them, but get some ideas from them perhaps. So that's what it looks like. So yeah, when you're writing, you should be thinking, when you're writing your essay, have I used or am I using a range of vocabulary? Just have this checklist. Maybe while you're writing at the end, ask yourself, have I used a range of grammar structures or grammatical structures? Have I used some good cohesive devices to help the text flow? Have I made any mistakes? Check that. Everybody makes these little mistakes, typos that maybe you're not really concentrating, slips or typos when they're not real mistakes. You know what's correct, but just not concentrating, or you're going very quickly. Then just ask yourself, if you have time, just read the whole essay and think, does this flow? Does it flow well? But again, you will be against the clock, so you have to do it quite quickly. So I wanted to make sure you have that information before, in the first class, so that you can at least start writing your essays, if you like, in the next week. Any questions about any of that?
I would like to ask you, does the article count as the proper word?
What do you mean? Sorry, the article in
the article, for example, A and V. Do they?
Are they
counted as the?
Yeah, they count all the words. Yeah, articles, everything. Yeah, contractions are counted as 2 words. Yeah, in this case, okay. It's all included. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close. So one other extra thing with your preparation, when you're doing your writing tasks in preparation, you don't have to do it in 45 minutes at first. If you've never practiced the essay for the Cambridge exams, you can give yourself more time, because you want to be thinking about the structure, about what vocabulary and grammar to use. So if you want some people take like 2 hours to write an essay, which is maybe excessive, but you don't need to do it in 45 minutes at first. But at some point before you take the exam, and preferably during this course, so you can send it to me, you should try to do it against the clock. You know, against the clock sounds a bit, you know, it's not a competition, but do it within the time limit, within the 45 minutes. So you get a feel for how, if you can do it, because yeah, the first couple of times, the first couple of compositions, you're just trying to think about the structure and how you're going to write it. But at some point you'll need to do it within the 45 minutes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, Sophia, I think you put your hand up first. Yeah, Fabiana. Yeah, go on.
So in case we have the computer-based exam, are we going to get like a paper where I can make my planning?
Yeah, you should, because again, it depends on the examination center. I've spoken to many students about this. You should have a piece of scrap paper, some paper to take notes on. You may not need it because on the computer-based exam, that's one of the advantages of the computer-based exam. You can just delete and rewrite. On the paper-based exam, you have to cross out, and it can get messy. But you should have a piece of paper. One of my students told me that she didn't get a scrap piece of paper, and she asked for one, and they said no. But in most examination centers, they should. Unfortunately, sometimes it depends on the examination center, but you should have one. Yeah.
And I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It is not clear for me what we have to do with this mandatory reading. So I've read the book already. How it is going to look in the exam? The question: are they gonna have a quote from the book, and I have to reflect on that, or they're gonna ask questions about the book, and I have to answer them?
Okay. First of all, it's not mandatory. You don't have to read the book. It's an extra option, and I recommend it because it gives you. There are a lot of advantages, a lot of benefits from reading the book. So I think it's good that you've read it, but it's not mandatory. You in part 2 of the exam, as I'll explain, of the writing paper, you have 5 options. So that just gives you an extra option.
So this is an option. Okay.
Yeah. But it's good that you've read it. Yeah. Now you have something extra that other people who haven't read the book won't have. So, but regarding the question, I can't tell you. It will be, the thing is, the writing task for the set text could be an essay, it could be an article, it could be a review, it could be a report, or it could be a letter. There's no way to know. Again, in the handbook, the handbook that Anna shared in the chat, or you can find on Googling it anyway, you will see a couple of examples, not for these books, not for the current books, but for past books, but you get an idea of the type of questions they could ask. Often they ask about the relationships of characters in the books, or to evaluate. It depends. I don't want to say too much because it depends. It's quite open. We don't know, basically. We don't know what the question will be. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Fabiana, sorry.
Yes, maybe a stupid question. So are we allowed to bring our clock so that we can check the time when we write? No. So,
you mean your watch? The watch?
Yes, your watch, our watch.
No, you again, I'm pretty sure, because you won't be able to wear your watch. No.
Okay. And we don't have to bring vocabulary dictionary. No,
you can't take anything. No.
They're very strict. Okay, yes, because the problem is that when I write, I don't find synonyms, and I'm always writing the same. Okay, so everything in mind. Okay.
That's part of the test. Yeah, you can't. They're very strict on this type of thing. Even if you're allowed to have a bottle of water, but you have to take the label off. You can't have anything on the bottle of water. So that's an example of how strict they are, because like for the listening, you can't use your own headphones because they're worried about people cheating. But you were asking, but there will be a clock in the room, so you will be able to look at the clock on the wall for the time. And that's another advantage of the computer-based exam. You have a timer on the screen which counts down. So for the writing, for example, it will start at 90 minutes and it counts down, and it gives you a warning when there are 10 minutes left, and then a warning when there are 5 minutes left. It's the same for the reading and use of English. So there are many advantages to the computer-based exam. So
the
yeah,
timer is quite stressful. Okay.
Yeah, maybe counting down. Yeah. So Sophia, you had another question?
Yeah, that reminded me of the Microsoft Word. When you're making a document, you see on the bottom how many words or how many letters you used. Are we gonna have that one in the computer-based exam?
Yeah,
Do you know anything about that?
I think you can see the word count. I made a video on this too, and I can't remember what I said in the video, but
But then we don't have to count it.
Yeah, exactly. What you shouldn't worry about counting the words anyway. You should, even in the paper-based exam, you should you can count like the number of words in one line and then multiply it by the number of lines. You get more or less an idea, but it doesn't need to be that strict. You should have a feel for, you know, how many words or how long each paragraph should be. So if you always write 4 paragraphs, you shouldn't waste time counting words. But I think in the computer-based, you have that option. One thing, you can watch my video on the computer-based exam if you like, but apart from that, there is a tutorial on the official Cambridge website about the computer-based exam, explaining how to use it. And you can even do a mock sample paper using the software that they use. I don't know, maybe that's what you did, Anna, on the Cambridge website, where you do the computer-based mock exam, so you can familiarize yourself with the platform and I think there's a more technical word, which I'm not very good with technology, but the interface, I think that's the word, the interface. So that if you're planning to take the computer-based exam, I do recommend you do that, because you just want to be confident before you go to the exam.
And let me add something. I booked my exam like a couple days ago, and to be honest, I preferred to have a paper-based one, because I don't know, it's just a traditional way to do the exam.
Yeah.
But I was struggling to find this one, and in the end, I ended up to register for the computer-based, and I was under impression that the paper-based one, they're sold out quicker.
Really? Right.
Yeah, because all the left one on the computer-based, or they're phasing out to the paper-based. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know. There are a lot of advantages to the computer-based. I think I would be like you. I think I just prefer to write with pen and paper, but there are a lot of advantages to the computer-based, especially with the writing, and the listening. You have headphones. In the paper-based, you're just in a room with lots of other people, and sometimes just the sound is coming from the front of the room, and there may be other noises. So there are many. I'll share my video, but as I said, you can check out the tutorial on the official website. So I understand how you feel, but it's probably better, and you get your results much quicker. From the computer-based exam, you get the results in 2 weeks. I think on the paper-based, it's 2 months. I don't know if that's important to you, but for some people,
it was 28th of July. The exam itself 9th of July, and they promised to release the result on 28th. So yeah, about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it'd probably be before that, but that's, you know, they give a little bit extra just in case. But it's definitely quicker than the paper-based. Yeah, but that's the detail. Yeah, Anna. Yeah.
I have a question too, because in the second part of the writing, you didn't put the essay, but you just mentioned that the SEC test could also be an essay.
Yeah.
So is it just an option for the SEC text, or is an option like I can write 2 essays even if one of them is not like a SEC test?
No.
So part 1 and part 2, write 2.
No, it's not one of the extra options. It's quite complicated, but you'll have, so the essay in the first part, in part 2, you have the option of either, it'll be 3 out of, well, I'm going to explain this more next week, but no, to answer your question, if it's not one of the set text tasks, you can't choose an essay for the second part. It's only if it's, So you like the essay? That's your favorite, or?
I think it's the part that is easier to manage in terms of logic and structure, because you know what to do. So you have to play kind of with words and structure. But as you said earlier during the presentation, it's easier, for example, to come up with inversions or conditionals because you can think about that while you're planning. So I find it easier.
Yeah. Many people feel that. Yeah, because tasks like the review or the article are more open. You have more flexibility, more space to demonstrate different vocabulary. But people prefer the sort of limitations of an essay or the report. For example, the report is very structured, so people feel comforted by the structure in some ways. So yeah, I understand that. But no, you probably, it depends if one of the set texts is but that's why I recommend, or another reason why I recommend reading the set text, because you just have more options on the day of the exam. It could be an essay, yeah.
But you would you recommend for us to I already have Jane Austen, so because I love reading, but in one of the videos, I think it was with the group of 4, and they were talking about CPE. There was one of them talking about the opportunity to watch the movie instead of reading the book. Would you still recommend reading the book anyway, and then in case on top of that adding the watching the video? Or
well, the more you do, the better. If you can read the book, watch the film or the series, they always choose books that have adaptations, film or series adaptations, because they actually specify that you can watch the film, and that could be enough. But I just think the more information you have, the better. The more the more you immerse yourself in the story or the characters, the better. Yeah, that was Jerun, I think, who mentioned that, and he got a fantastic score in the proficiency exam. But also with the great thing now, you have YouTube videos of people talking about the book or talking about the film. For example, I was watching one about Us, the author of Us, talking about the characters. So some of the vocabulary he used to describe the characters, you could literally copy and use in your writings. And so other people who review, a lot of people on YouTube or reviews on the internet in general, but they use a lot of they analyze the story, that analyze the book or the film, and they give you extra ideas or extra vocabulary. So you have so many resources now. If you just do watch the film, read the book, watch those videos, read reviews, and you'll be as prepared as possible, I think. But on the day of the exam, you don't have to choose that option. Maybe on the day you'll think, I don't want to write a letter about this book. But you haven't wasted your time, because you've expanded your vocabulary and you've read a book in English, so which you do anyway, as you said. So it's all good. Yeah. Okay. As I said, we're going to look more at the writing next week. I think at some point we will have time for everything, I promise. But sometimes I'll try to follow the program as much as possible. But in the end, we will have done all the tasks. Any more questions, or are we ready to call it a day for today? Yep. Okay. It was very nice to meet you all. As I said, we're going to be spending a lot of time together over the next 7 weeks now, but I'm looking forward to it. So, as I said, you can send me your email, your essays or writing tasks when you like. And any questions in the Telegram group, I'm there, and I'll send you some homework too. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see you next week at the same time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye.